Looking to improve your life, brush up on your personal growth techniques? You are in the right place. Welcome to Life's Little Lessons with your host, author of Designing Your Own Destiny, Kevin A. Dunlap.
Hello, everybody. This is Kevin Dunlap with Life's Little Lessons, and welcome back to our show. Today, I have a gentleman that I've not actually personally met, but we've actually talked a little bit online as well as on the phone, and I found that this gentleman is somebody I really wanted to get to know better, and might be somebody that you may want to use as well for helping you help scale your business or possibly even getting your business started. His name is Josh Haynam. The name of his company is called Interact, and he's the founder and CEO of that company, and it is kind of his title that you could call him is that he's an Interact quiz builder. So today I've got Josh Haynam. And Josh, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kevin.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. Could you tell me about a little bit what Interact does and what is this Interact quiz builder? What does that actually entail?
Yeah, really good question. So basically what it actually is a place to make quizzes just like the ones that you see all over your Facebook feed all the time. So what kind of coffee drink are you? What kind of shrimp are you? We've seen all sorts of stuff. And if you get into the marketing space, it's, what kind of marketer are you? What kind of salesperson are you? That kind of stuff. So personality quizzes, but companies use our tool to make those quizzes to promote themselves. So they'll put those quizzes out onto Facebook and their website and use it as a way to engage with their potential customers. And the quizzes also have an email capture component built in. So at the end of the quiz, the company can say, hey, enter your email if you want to learn more about how to become a better marketer based on your marketing type. If you're doing a what's your marketing personality quiz. And then you can follow up in a personalized way after that. So it's been very, very effective for email collection. We just crossed over 8 million emails captured through our platform. We've been around about 5 years and there's been just crazy growth recently. So it's been a very, very good tool, a different way to connect with your potential customers, bring them in and capture their contact information.
Okay, so I think I've seen some of those before, even done those before, like which cartoon character, I've seen those before. And I think if I remember right, some of them do the email name capture at the front end of the quiz. And I know there's one that's also do the ones at the back end of the quiz so that they can actually get their results. And I've seen those. Is that kind of what you're doing as well on the front end to back end? Or
Yeah, same thing. It's an option for customers. They can choose to put the capture at the front or the back.
Okay. And I do know the importance of creating an email list. I mean, so this is a perfect way for somebody to do that. Now, what size of companies do you normally work with? Do you work with large companies, small, just startups, or what do you normally work with?
Yeah, pretty much anything. We've worked with global brands that make quizzes that get taken 1 million times in 8 hours. We also work with a lot of small companies where their quiz gets taken a total of 200 times a year, but half of the people that take it end up putting in their email address, so they're still able to build their list up, and it's significant for them. So it scales really well to where you can use it really quickly as a small company, or you can make something that's going to be taken by a massive number of people, millions, and it still works the same way. So we cater to everybody. We work mostly with the smaller companies just because there's a lot more. But we do work with about 100 of the Fortune 500, and then we work with just a lot of other large companies.
Oh, fantastic. And tell me a little bit, how did you get started and why did you pick this industry specifically? Because this seems like a very niche industry to be in.
Yeah, very, very specific. And I always say that it happened accidentally on purpose. And what I mean is that myself and Matt, who's my co-founder in the company, we were website consultants before we started this company. And this was while we were in college. We were building websites, we were building marketing plans for people. So we really understood the pain points of small businesses. And the biggest one was always contact collection. They wanted more emails. They wanted to grow their list. That was the number one thing they always asked us about. And one of our clients requested that we build him a quiz. It was, what kind of salesperson are you? Was the actual quiz. We built it and it solved that problem of collecting emails. It worked really, really well to get people to opt into his list. And so we paid attention to that. We built out a platform for making quizzes. And now you can build that same what type of salesperson are you quiz using our platform in about 30 minutes. And we've had 40,000 companies use it to make quizzes. And so it's just come a really long way since then.
Okay, so does your company actually help make the quiz and coming up with the questions, or is that something that's kind of a template that if I were to go onto your website, I can go and create my own quiz through your business?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of pre-made quizzes that you can just copy and use exactly as they are. You don't have to change anything. And then we also have templates you can use and fill in all your own content.
Okay. Because I've wondered about some of that. It's like I've taken what cartoon character are you, or which superhero are you, and I've taken those quizzes, and I wasn't sure because this was a year or two ago, but I was just, how do they know that I am Batman? How do they know that I'm Green Lantern or Superman? I was just, is that stuff that you can also create doing research, or am I the one putting that together, or is it a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. So we've got ones that are already done and you don't have to touch it. And then if you choose to do it yourself, we've got explanation tips in there that kind of walks you through, here's how you connect each question to the results. Here's how all the scoring works and the logic and the questions and how you should write things, what you should put where, all that kind of stuff. So we have got these little explanation bubbles next to every single part of our builder that just explain how it works. Because, when people come to us to use a quiz builder, it's the first time they've ever done it. And so we want to just make sure we're explaining really clearly what everything is.
Okay. And so you say this happened by accident, but it was a deliberate. So could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I say that because it's one of those things where it was accidental that we came up with the idea itself, but it was on purpose because we were trying really hard at something. And I think that's super important for people that want to start their own company. They always get stuck on the idea and stuck on, I need this world-changing movement to happen. But in reality, the best ideas for companies often come from just working hard at something. And so for us, it was working hard at building websites and understanding what small businesses were looking for. And out of that, this idea sprung up. If we hadn't been doing anything, if we'd been sitting around waiting for an idea to come to us, it never would have happened and this company wouldn't exist. So it happened accidentally, but because we were already working hard on something else.
Okay. And now I know we've talked offline about this, that this is your main way of having people find the quiz is mainly through Facebook. So it's not like on Instagram or anything like that. It's mainly through Facebook. And I'm assuming either personal posts or paid advertising.
Yeah, either one. So you can either post it to a page directly, or you can boost it, or you can set it up as a full-blown ad.
Okay. Because I know I've done a few ads before, and that's very interesting. And you say you've been doing this for 5 years. So so I'm assuming now this is your full job. Now you're no longer working on websites anymore. You're mainly doing this.
Yeah, we still did the websites for 9 to 12 months at the beginning. And then ever since that point, we've been working on this full time. So it's been probably a full 4 years that it's been a full-time job.
Oh, that's. I've interviewed a lot of guests over the last few weeks and a couple of months, and it's a lot of people are actually falling the exact same boat that you did. Is that you accidentally discover something, in your routine, and then all of a sudden you're building an entire business, and your entire career now is based around something that you're fulfilling a need that you did not initially even know it even existed.
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of stuff actually happens. It's not some, magical dream that you have where you just come upon some amazing idea and all of a sudden you create a massive company. It's really just understanding what are the problems that exist in my daily life and what are the problems that exist with the people that I work with and how can I solve those problems? And that's where companies come from.
Yeah, and that's actually has been said so many times is find a need or find a solution to somebody else's problem that's unique and build it from there. So that's amazing.
Yep, that's all there is to it.
So what kind of companies do you normally work with? I mean, do you work with like coaches? Do you work with sales companies? What is it that you have seen that you mainly work with?
Yeah, so there's a few that we work with really well. Coaches is definitely one of them. So anything, marketing coaches, life coaches, business coaches, all that kind of stuff. We also work really well with retail brands. So we have companies like Lush Cosmetics and Home Depot and Estee Lauder and things like that that work with our product to make quizzes. They'll do personality quizzes about, what kind of products you should buy. So coaches, retail, and then a lot of nonprofits. So the American Red Cross, the United Nations, Oxfam, Amnesty International, the list goes on. We work with a lot of nonprofits. And so those are kind of the big three industries that super use our product. They're super users. So That's our main focus, but we do work with a lot of other random types of companies. Pretty much anything that you can name, we've worked with at some point.
Oh, okay. Because I was just imagining this, if if some of the listeners out there, or a lot of them are going to be new into business, or they've only been around for 2 or 3 years. I know, like my company has been around for 3 years as at the time of this recording, and and I'm still growing. This is a great. I can see this could be a great tool to help jumpstart some of your to get new blood into your system, or whatever you call it, reactivate some of the old people, the previous customers that you've had in the past that may have become kind of quiet, just to you know get them re-involved again.
Yeah, it's a really amazing way to get a conversation going, whether it's a new conversation or it's restarting an old one, because a quiz brings curiosity with it. You find out your personality, you find out how well you scored on something, and you're naturally going to want to talk about that more. So it's an amazing way for brands to reconnect with clients, whether it's they've only checked out your website or you've worked with them for a long time. Either way, you can use the quiz as a way to re-spark that conversation.
Okay. Now, because because I'm going through my head of the times I've experienced this over the last few years, and the analytics and things like that. Do you have any tracking of analytics or anything like that?
Yeah, so we track everything, and we're actually just redoing the system. It's not something that people will actually see, but we're making it much smoother on the back end of things. But yeah, every single data point that comes in, every single person, how they answer every single question, who gets what results, what percentage of people get what results, all that kind of stuff. It's just massive amounts of data that come in. It's basically like running a survey, but it's a quiz, so you don't have to entice people to take it. They just will, and then you're still getting all that survey data as well.
Okay, and let me ask you this before I ask you the question I was about to ask you. If I were to take one of your quizzes, as a new client, and I saw your Facebook, saw the ad on Facebook, and I took the quiz, I'm assuming when I get the result, it's also there online, and I could share that result to my wall.
Correct. Yeah. So you can share your results. It would say, I got analytical. What's your marketing type? And so then you'd share out the results of the quiz. And when people click on that, they'll go and take the quiz themselves.
So, because I just want to point that out, because that's what I was about to ask you. Because that's, to me, could be, I don't know if this is true or not from the analytics you've seen. If I'm taking that quiz and I put it on my wall, let's say Joe Bob is the customer, or not the customer, is the one that ordered the quiz, that created it.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it on my wall, and then my friend Sarah, she sees it on my wall. She takes the quiz. Now that's all like free, organic, more traffic to your to the quiz than just a paid advertising or one person posting it on their own wall.
Yeah, exactly. So you can quickly form a viral loop, right? So on average, somewhere between 5 and 10% of people share their quiz results. When that gets going, if those people have a decent amount of followers, all of a sudden you can have more people taking your quiz every single hour, every single minute, because people are sharing it, their friends see it, 5 to 10% of them share it, and you just have an actual viral loop. The definition of that is just more people see it every time somebody sees it, and they can go crazy and just become exponentially larger. And that's how these quizzes get millions or more views in a single day.
Okay, and I'm glad to point that out, because if somebody's looking to grow their business, this could be especially if they're creative enough to create something unique and that could go viral, that you could spend very little money. I mean, I don't know the cost of creating the quiz. Let's say you doing a Facebook ad, but if it's viral enough, hitting the right people, that could cause it to go to way more than what you're spending on ads or anything along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can have some crazy examples. I've seen stuff happen before where people are spending, $50 on ads, and then it just is a spark. And then all of a sudden it catches fire and it starts to blow up on its own. So initially you're spending money to get it out there, but then it starts to propel itself.
Okay. And I'm assuming by having the big name clients, you do get a lot of repeat business and other people creating more and more quizzes as they're getting more and more successful?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just blowing up right now. I mean, the numbers are just growing exponentially in terms of the amount of people making quizzes as well as taking quizzes. It just keeps on growing.
Okay. And well, that's very fascinating. I mean, because I don't know that much about your business. I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around it. I mean, it seems like a fairly simple business in a way. I mean, from the just the overall look on things. I know there's going to be a lot of data crunching, and you got to make sure all the systems work. I know that's back end stuff that we don't see.
Mhm.
That's very interesting because I've seen surveys before, I've seen the quizzes before, and yes, I have shared stuff before on my wall. So, and most stuff that I shared, the quizzes that I found were from other people's walls. So
Mhm.
I'm following.
Yeah, it's so interesting because people always say something along those lines when they find out what I do. And it's funny how, there's a business behind the things that just happen in life, right? It's like
Mhm.
these quizzes are on Facebook. I've taken those, I've shared those, and you never really think about how that works. But then, there's a company behind it that's making it all happen. And that's where we fit in it is really simple. It's a simple thing. It's a simple, fun thing. And it's a thing that people do. And so there's a business to be made out of serving that market.
Now, are there many people doing this kind of business, or is this a pretty unique? Because I never heard of a person doing this kind of a business. So,
Yeah, it is pretty unique. When we started, there was no one doing it, and now there's a few. They're mostly copycats in terms of the product. They rip a lot of stuff off of what we've done because we built the first version of it, and we're kind of figuring out what to do next. Since it's so new, and most people have never heard of anything like this, we're oftentimes kind of experimenting with how to build it and what to build, and
mhm.
so in that sense, we don't really have a lot of competition. There's nobody else that's like already figured all this out. We're figuring out along the way, which is a unique challenge. It's exciting and it's really fun to have to figure out exactly what to do piece by piece. But it also means that we don't really have to worry about, anybody else being ahead of us.
And I'm glad that you kind of said that because I think and I'm going to turn this around just a little bit. I'm sure there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that have a unique idea, unique business that there are no competition. And I know I went through some of that probably back in 2004 when I first moved to Las Vegas and I started doing real estate. And I picked a very special niche in real estate called a lease option. There was one other company that was out there doing it in all of Las Vegas. And I've been doing that for 14 years now.
Hmm.
And with one company, we actually, for a while, we merged together.
Hmm.
So I'd like to hear your experience, what you've kind of gone through as, you know, there is no template for you to follow. There is no, I mean, there might be some, but I'd just like to find out, since you're starting a unique business and building that, what were some of the things that you had to go through in developing that?
Yeah, I think the hardest part is that there's a lot of conventional wisdom that goes something like pull together the best pieces of your competition and make a product that is overall a better experience. And that's something you can do if you're building a product that's already been created. There's already a bunch of versions of it. Now you're going to have to go explain why it's different, but when you're explaining why it's different, you can use the other product's names. You can say it's different from X because of Y. And then that's an interesting conversation. You get it started, and then you're talking with a potential customer. For us, we don't get to have those conversations. We don't ever get to say we're different than X because of Y. There's no X that exists. And that's really, it's tough because you don't get to just go with what's already been created. You have to actually create from scratch. So when I'm thinking about a new feature, our team's thinking about a new way of storing data, a new way of showing things on our website, what we have to do is call up potential clients, explain what we do real quick, and then say, hey, what do you think of this new thing that we're planning on doing? Or we'll call up an existing client and say, hey, do you have an hour to talk about this new idea? And then we'll have to actually talk it through with somebody. And we don't get to just go off of what's already been made. We're talking it through with the people that actually use it. And so it takes a ton of time. Like right now, we're working on some of our user experience stuff. And I will spend sometimes up to 3 hours on the phone with a client going through the experience of the product because we have to figure out how they're using it. There's no way for us to know how they're using it, because there's no other products out there doing the same thing that we can learn from and kind of say, oh, they're doing it this way because of, whatever reason. So what it comes down to is that instead of, they say great artist copy, right? Instead of being a great artist, you have to invent. So you become an inventor instead of an artist, and it's a completely different ball game because you're getting your ideas directly from people, directly from conversations, screen shares, that kind of stuff, rather than from the competition.
Okay. And I mean, I'm assuming you definitely have to survey your audience, see what they're asking, see what their needs are, because you're growing something that just doesn't exist. I mean, let's say the first person that made a mouse, for a computer, it's like, okay, nobody knows what this is for, but you have to figure that out as you're going along. So,
yeah, and a lot of times, people don't even know what they want. So you have to listen to them talk about their problems, and then you have to say, oh, I think if we did this thing, it would solve that problem, even though that person never told you to do whatever thing that was. So you kind of have to listen to where they're struggling and say, okay, I think I can come up with a solution to that. Let me see, then test it. And there's just a lot of guess and check where it's, you're listening to what's going on, you're listening to what the issues are, and then you're guessing on a solution. You implement that solution and you see if it works.
Okay. And so you have to be very adaptable, obviously. So every client's different. But the thing is, I'm assuming if the problem comes up, the situation comes up enough times, now you say, okay, now this has to be part of the overall system.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of have to be adaptable, but also very specific, because if you have too many options presented, it becomes confusing, overwhelming. You don't want that. So it has to start specific, but then also has to be really clear in terms of, if I want to make a certain customization, here's how I can do that. But the general path has to be very straightforward so that your average customer isn't going in, getting overwhelmed, confused, and leaving. So we call it an upside down tree. And if you imagine an upside down tree, the trunk is at the top. So it starts out very narrow. And then as you get into the product, the branches start to go out. So you can choose one path that goes down one branch path that's completely different from someone else. But you start out with that trunk, which is very narrow, very straightforward. You get exactly what's going on. You understand how it all works. Once you understand how it all works, then you say, oh, I want to do X. I want to do Y. I want to do Z. I want to do F, and you choose your own path. But it starts out with a really specific set of things that you're doing.
Okay. Because I was starting to imagine a tree with an upside down funnel, or like a regular funnel. But you're talking about all the branches that are going out.
actual different branch paths. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. And how these quizzes are they can they be very intricate, or do you suggest that they keep them kind of simple, or what would your suggestion be in your experience?
Yeah, in my experience, it's an interesting psychological thing, because it does not matter how complex they are. If your quiz is 70% accurate, it is exactly the same as a quiz that is 100% accurate. Now, I understand that that's not how people think about things when they're creating it. They don't want to have that margin of error. They don't want to, potentially misdiagnose someone. And so they get very apprehensive if they're not able to control every aspect of it. And so what we've done is we built in a branching logic system that lets you say, if somebody answers question 1, answer B, I want them to go to a different question than if they answer C, and then if they answer A. And you can create this insane map that it gets down to the level of, there are no two results that are the same. Every single person who takes my quiz will see something different. And sometimes that's what people want when they're making a quiz. They want it to be incredibly pinpointed and accurate to where it is giving the most direct advice based on exactly how someone proceeds through the quiz. Now, again,
That
it
could be
doesn't.
that could be very, because I'm just looking at, because I used to teach math. So I'll
Yep.
say if you got a question, say you have a 3-question quiz and you have 4 answers on the first one, and that
Mm-hmm.
goes to question 2, which is there's 4 question
Mm-hmm.
twos. So you
Mm-hmm.
have 4 answers on that. So that's 16 now results that you
Mm-hmm.
have. If you go to the third question, which is, there's 16 of those different ones. Now you got
Mm-hmm.
that times 4 again, which is what, 40, about 64 some ish
Mm-hmm.
questions or
Yep.
64 results. That
Yeah.
could be
It
very.
gets exponential. We commonly work with folks that have questions, and when we dig into their quiz, there's 97, 99, 125 results. So there are 125 different possible results you could get in a quiz, and that's what they want. They want it to be that specific, and that's okay. That's something you can do. Again, it actually doesn't matter, and we have all the data to show that, but there's no convincing people once they've decided that it needs to be absolutely accurate. So we're not going to argue. We're just going to provide the tool, and again, try to keep it dead simple so that if you want to do that, you can.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. So
Yeah.
I never knew that this existed. So thank you for
It's
sharing it.
crazy. Yeah,
And
it's
hopefully,
crazy.
the people that are listening to this, like, okay, because we'll get to your website here later in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's crazy that that you could create something like that. Now, I've created some mind maps before. It's kind of your quiz. The results is a mind map.
Mm-hmm.
It's a flow chart for those of you that don't know what a mind map is. And so you have you have all these little, as you were saying, trees with all, because if you're going down the trunk of the tree and then you hit 4 branches, well, those branches are going to have their own branches. And those branches are going to have their own branches,
Mm-hmm.
all the way until you get out to even the limbs, which have the little, and you can even say your overall results are the leaves.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
Yeah.
wow, I
That's
like your
exactly what
analogy
it
of the
is.
tree.
Yeah.
That's a great
Yeah.
analogy.
That's what it is.
Okay, so I'm going to go and move on to some of our other questions. So could you tell me about, because you've been doing this for, you said 5 years, but I was under the impression that you were doing other stuff for the first year, and then it was about and 1 year in is when you were actually started more focusing on this.
Mm-hmm.
So could you tell me a little bit about some of your early successes that when you were just getting started with the quiz, the Interact quiz building program?
Yeah, so there's some crazy stuff. We struggled for the first year. We didn't get anybody to pay for the product for 12 months, which was crazy. And we were still doing consulting, which is why we were able to make it through. But it was still a really tough time in terms of deciding on whether we should keep going or not. And especially since this didn't exist in the market, it was hard to know whether anybody was really interested. But we hit a point where it started to work, and it worked because of what I call the boring content strategy. And it's boring because we're literally just writing about what you can do with our tool, which is not that interesting. It's like, here's how to make a quiz if you are a paleo mom blog. Here's how to make a quiz if you are, a fitness guru, personal trainer who focuses on high intensity interval training, right? Like really specific stuff. But because it was so specific, if anybody was searching for that, they actually wanted to do that thing. And so then they'd click through and they make a quiz, they sign up and they pay. So we made a bunch of these really specific things. And then it turns out that it's not just small companies that are searching for really specific things. And so the first summer we were working on this after school, we still hadn't really gotten many people to sign up and pay for it, but a few. And Matt and I are sitting in a college library conference room, which is where we would work because we had no office. And one of those people who read one of those really specific articles and had signed up and was working on making a quiz was Forbes. And I just look at Matt and I'm like, dude, Forbes is in there making a quiz right now on our platform that sort of works, sort of not that much. And it was absolutely insane. And a couple of weeks later, I got a call and I actually went to voicemail because I think I was in church or something. I came out and the voicemail is like, hey, this is so-and-so, head of social media at the American Red Cross. We love what you guys are doing with the quizzes. Let's set up a time to talk about it. And now the Red Cross has used us for the last 4 years. So really insane how quickly it turns around once you find a way to connect with your potential customers, and who will come and sign up once you start to serve a need like we began to. So those are two really insane stories from the beginning, and there's a bunch more, but Those are two that stick out.
Okay. And that's kind of funny because you're talking about, I mean, you're working probably on a laptop in the conference room at a college library.
Hmm.
And I mean, and that was your only quiet space that you could have to run your business.
Yep.
And it's so cool because you did something like that because you were being inventive, you were being creative, just like what you're doing now with your business, that you didn't have to start with very much. You started
Yeah.
with your basic laptop.
Yeah, I
And
mean, that's really all you need. And for a while, we were jumping around, working out of apartments and libraries and friends' houses and our own apartment and pretty much wherever we needed to until we could actually, settle down. Now we've had our own office space that's, really nice for a few years. But before that, it was just like whatever we had to do to get by, we'd do.
okay. And the thing you stuck with it. The thing is, that was the most important thing. You stuck with it. And that's the tenacity, which a lot of entrepreneurs, when they're just getting started, you're not going to let the 1 year of not getting paid for your business idea until now you created an entire business model around it. So
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people think that they have that kind of tenacity and persistence, and then you really don't reckon with it until you're in it. And you're 1 year in, you're 2 years in, you're 3 years in. And even when it's going well, it doesn't always feel like it's going well. And the true test of that persistence, that fortitude, is when you're in it for a few years and you really keep going rather than dropping off, because there's always an option to cut out. So it's really once you get into it for a while that it separates kind of the wheat from the chaff, and the ones that actually want to do it keep on going, and the rest decide it's not for them.
mhm. Well, I want to say thank you for sharing about the Forbes and American Red Cross. Well, so those are some of your early successes. What are some of your more recent successes? And you've been in business 5 years, and so could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few that have been just absolutely crazy. There was a day, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, we got 3 Fortune 500s signed up in the same day. And it's just weird for me to think about, from Matt and I working in a library conference room to now we have 3 Fortune 500 companies that have approached us. I don't even talk to them anymore because Jane runs all of our operations. So she manages everybody that comes in, and they signed up and they use this thing that he and I created, just on our laptops, drifting around trying to find a place to work. So really weird and kind of surreal moment in that regard. And then another thing happened last week, again with Forbes, this time not using our product, but they quoted me in an article. And that's also a really strange thing because, I come from a small town, not a place where people get recognized a lot. And then all of a sudden my name's appearing next to, some sort of prediction for how marketing is going to happen in 2018, as if I'm somebody that knows a bunch of stuff. And it's just really crazy. So things like that have just changed so much from when you're just starting out, nobody responds to your emails, nobody's interested in helping you. And then all of a sudden it flips around and you've got people approaching you from giant companies. You have people approaching you to ask for advice, people approaching you to, speak at conferences now, all that kind of stuff. It's really a strange turn of events, and still is still hard to wrap my mind around sometimes.
Okay, well, hopefully when you look back into a couple of years and come back to this show and you're so much further ahead, you say, I remember those days when I was just like
Yeah,
this. Just like
yeah,
I'm sure you remember
exactly.
those days of sitting in the library conference room and you got that first Forbes client that's on there. It's like, I mean, well, congratulations on that. I mean, that was a good day
It
for you
was.
2 weeks ago.
It was. It really was.
So now I'm going to move into this, like some of your fears and such. When you were first getting started, what kind of fears did you have, in starting this business or even transitioning over to the quiz business, the Interact business? What were some of your biggest fears and how did you overcome those, or how did you circumvent them?
Yeah, I think the biggest fear for me is actually just not following through and and failing. Even since I was young, like I started my first company when I was sophomore in high school, so like 15, 16 years old, and voted most likely to succeed. And everybody that I know from high school, everybody I know from college, all their parents, all that kind of stuff is like, oh yeah, like Josh is going to do big stuff one day. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in this company, and we didn't get anybody to pay for it for a whole year. The following year it was slow. The following year it was slow. The following year it was slow. Like, we didn't get our big break until really this last 12 months. And so you're going through all of that, and the fear is like, there's so much pressure that I put on myself, and everybody that I know expects me to be successful. And what if I'm not? And so I think that is tough because it leads to an unhealthy type of going on. If you're plodding forward because you don't want to stop, that's not a healthy kind of plodding forward. If you're plodding forward because you love the act of plodding, call it something else, you love the journey, you love the adventure of, going into unknown territory, that's very different than just moving forward because you feel like you can never stop. And so I think that was really the biggest thing. And it's still something that's tough for me, when there's days when I want to take a rest and I feel like I can't, because if I don't keep moving forward, what's everybody going to think? So that's probably the biggest ongoing fear that I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with. Once you kind of put yourself out on a limb, going along with the tree analogy still, you put yourself out on a limb and everybody knows you're out there. If you kind of, rescind back and you come back to the safety of a regular job or a different career or whatever, how is that going to reflect on you? And I think that's a tough thing to deal with no matter what stage you're at when you start your own thing.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you stuck with it. And you've, like you said, in 2017 has been a good year for you. So this is great. And could you tell me, I guess, a little bit about some of your early challenges or setbacks that you had? And I mean, I know you shared a little bit of that already, but maybe some specific things?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing was just we had to convince people to try using our product because it's something they'd never done before. And it's still something people had never done before. So now, instead of 10 people signing up in a month, it's 2,000. And we have to figure out how to accommodate all of these 2,000 people every single month, 20, 30,000 a year that have never done this before. How do we help them understand it? And within that, it's hard because you not only have to convince them to try it, but once they've been convinced to try it, they have all these ideas, like I was saying about the 125 different results. They have all these ideas about what it should be. So in 1 second, they have no idea what it is. In the very next second, they're requesting all these things or else they're not going to use it. And they actually don't use it. So it's really tough because you're constantly battling between adding more complexity to the tool so that people will use it, and explaining what it is and making it simple so that they'll try it in the first place. And that's just been a constant challenge the entire way, because you've got this part where you have to simplify it and this part where you have to make it more complicated. And those things have to be within the same exact product, and it has to be, available for everyone. And that's just a really, really hard thing to do.
Now, because I've not gone to your website as yet. I will here shortly. If somebody were to go to your website, are they signing up on, say, a monthly membership fee? Are they signing up on it per quiz, or the size of the quiz, or how does that work with your business?
Yeah. So we have a freemium model, which means you can start out for free, play around with some basic features. And then if you want to launch it and really start to use it for a lot of people, then you have to upgrade and pay a monthly or yearly membership. But the cheapest one is like $200 a year. So it's pretty cheap.
Okay. And so like the bigger corporate clients, obviously they're doing multiple quizzes, probably have multiple access people going in there now from their social media platforms or people that they have. So I'm assuming you have a solopreneur version, and you've got a mid-sized business and large scale business.
Exactly. Yeah. So it goes like 200 a year, 600 a year, and then 1,500 a year for the bigger businesses. So solopreneur, you're paying, $17 a month on average.
Oh, okay, that's very affordable. I mean, that's a couple of what 3 or 4 Starbucks coffees.
Yeah, exactly. Or depending on how complex you get it, what's one.
Yes, that's true. Okay. And now, where do you see yourself, say, 20, 12, 24 months from now? I mean, because you said that the first year was almost very little money coming in. Then the second, third, and fourth year were just scraping by. And then the fifth year, because we're just finishing up the fifth year here, that you've actually really started growing. Where do you see yourself going 12 months from now, 24 months from now?
Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much how it went. And this last year was incredible, but also completely draining in terms of the mental, emotional, physical toll of having that much growth. I mean, we quadrupled our paying customer base in 11 months, which just was crazy. And there's so many growth pains that come along with that. And so coming off of that, I was extremely burnt out the last month of this year and still kind of working through it a little bit. But I think what's going to happen in terms of, predicting myself, knowing myself and what's going to come out of it is that I'll continue on that kind of rest period for a while and then jump back in and start solving those growth problems because it's a different set of challenges. It's completely different when you're trying to get somebody to sign up for something and they've never done it and you have no customers versus now you have a massive amount of customers and you need to make this thing more efficient. You need to make it more simple. You need to eliminate roadblocks. And those are just new puzzles to solve. And so what I believe is going to happen is that I will learn how to scale a business in the next 2 years, and we'll go from our numbers that we're at now, and hopefully triple or quadruple in the next 2 years. And at that point, we're running a good size SaaS company by any standard. And that's going to be really, really interesting and new challenges all the time. There will be hiring people. There will be solving usability issues. There will be all sorts of things that come along with that. But in the next 2 years, my big challenge is learning how to scale an organization, not just build one from the ground up.
Okay, and that's very important to know because as anybody that's out there listening is, there are times when a business will fail because it grows too fast because you just can't handle the business, and that's and you want to be careful on that because you don't need, like you say, going through the whole burnout. But then when do you start hiring employees? The only thing I can foresee problems that you could have is what about server issues? There's too many people online on your website, trying to build these programs. Well, now you got to get larger servers. How do you do all the hosting? How do you do? So I'm sure those are problems that either you've already gone through or you're looking at because your day-to-day workings of your business. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through a lot of those already. Now it's more about, scaling the people issues in terms of, how do you handle, thousands of paying customers? How do you handle, hundreds of thousands of people taking quizzes every day? How do you handle, millions, tens of millions a month, all this kind of stuff? And how do you make it all efficient so that it works, with 10,000 paying customers and not just 1,000. Right. And so that's a completely different set of skills that I have to develop in terms of growing that and handling all of that and kind of making it a more efficient organization because it's just a different thing. It's different than starting from scratch. Now we're the next level is what I'm calling it. It's like a video game, right? You level up, new level, but the map on that new level looks different than the map on the first one. And that's where we're at.
Okay. Well, because as we're about to start wrapping up here, we've been going on for like 40 or so minutes now. What are some lessons or some upbeat moments, or let's call it, sometimes I call it life's little lessons that you've learned as you've been growing? So would you be willing to share some of that with us?
Yeah, there's definitely a few really big things. Number one, when you're starting a company is to learn how to do what I call take a beat. And that's something I actually learned from my coach. Take a beat. So when something is really tough, something was really overwhelming, don't just respond to it. Take a second to think about it. Oftentimes take a second to ask for advice. Oftentimes take a minute or an hour or a day to talk to multiple people about what you should do, because these things that seem life altering when you're starting a company, as a lot of it does, mostly aren't. And if you respond to them like they're life altering, then you're going to mess it up worse than it was in the first place. And then you're going to have to fix all of that. So just take a beat to figure out what's going on. That's number one thing. Number two thing is continuously network. And I don't say network in the stupid version of it where you go to conferences and hand out your business cards. I mean, actually connect with people who are doing what you do, or have already done what you do, or are just interesting people that you can talk to about what you do, or even about not what you do, something else. Because the more you have an actual connection with other people, the better you will understand people, and all businesses sell to people. So you're going to do better in your business if you're having these genuine connections continuously with new people, with people you have known for a long time, all that kind of stuff. So continuously network is a huge thing. And then process. So process size, which is not a real word, but I use it all the time. Process size everything you do. As soon as something starts to work, and you'll know when it starts to work because you will have the same demonstration call 10 times in a row, and you'll be like, wow, I just said the same thing I said the previous 9 times. That's when you know it's a process. Write down the process, make a video out of the process, do whatever you have to do out of the process, and then find a more efficient / cheaper way to do that process. And if you keep doing that as you grow, you will scale much more efficiently than if you keep doing the same thing over and over again without turning it into a process. So those are really my 3 big things. Take a beat, process, and continuously network.
Okay, and I liked what you said about the process, because I've heard that in some of the other trainings or conferences that I've been to. Is if somebody keeps asking you the same question, or they keep asking you the same question, make a video, make a FAQ, make something out of it, so that you can just reference this. Hey, just go watch this video, and that will answer all your questions.
Exactly.
Then you have whatever questions you have after that. Then come back and I can answer those for you. Because otherwise, that's how you're going to free up the time in your day. So.
Yep.
Okay, well, Josh, if somebody wanted to doing business with you, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, you can get started for free, or you can do a demo and get connected with somebody on our side. The URL is tryinteract.com, so tryinteract.com is where you can go to check all of that out.
Okay, and so again, that was tryinteract.com, and you have a freemium version of it, so they can stick their toe in the water and see if this is something that they can do, and if it is something that they're starting to see some good results for, or they see the success, then they can actually start going with the initial package, which you said I believe was like $200 a year, or roughly $17 a month.
Correct. That's it.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, Josh, I do appreciate you being on the show today. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience, either about yourself, your company, or about being an entrepreneur?
I think there's 2 sides to being an entrepreneur. There's one side that is just jump in and do it. And then there's the other side that's why are you doing it? And it's important to have both of those, because I always encourage people when they talk to me about whatever random idea they do, which is what happens inevitably when you meet somebody and you tell them that you started your own company, and they're like, oh, I have this idea. And I always just say, do it, because there's no other way to know if you're going to want to do it. And then the other side of it, though, is why are you doing it? If you're doing it just because you want to look cool or you want to make a lot of money, odds are it's not going to happen. I mean, it's kind of the same type of odds as, going to the NFL or the NBA. It doesn't actually happen most of the time. Most people who start companies lose a ton of money and it doesn't work. But if you're doing it because you are really interested in exploring the option, or you actually think it's a good idea, or you think your idea can help people, then you really don't lose out if it doesn't all pan out in the end. Like, you get 2 years in, you've worked with a bunch of people, it's been a great experience, you've learned a lot, and you walk away. But if your initial goal was to make a lot of money or to look cool and none of that happened, then it's going to feel like you wasted 2 years. So jump in and start. but also take a hard look at why you're doing it.
Okay. And that's a very good point, because the why is your motivator. This is what's going to get you up in the morning. So it's also going to keep you tenacious when, hey, I'm not making any money in this for the first year, but you still have that strong why you want to build this. And like yourself, then the second you just start scaling from there. And now you're coming up to another crossroads. Is okay, I got to scale even bigger now, because
Exactly.
But your why was strong enough. It's taking you to where you are right now. So, well, thank you for sharing that, Josh.
Yeah, definitely.
So for those of you that want to work with Josh, his website again is tryinteract.com. And then Josh, I do want to say thank you for being on the show today. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. And yeah, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I enjoyed that.
Okay, my pleasure. Everybody, goodbye for now.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Life's Little Lessons with your host, author of Designing Your Own Destiny, Kevin A. Dunlap. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit kevinadunlap.com, facebook.com/kevinadunlap.author, and on Twitter @KevinADunlap. We'll catch you on the next episode of Life's Little Lessons.